Hey, this is Teresa Matsura, and you're listening to Uncanny Japan. I'm sure you've all heard. Japan is open to tourists again. It was closed for 2 years? But not anymore. And maybe you've also heard. The new Ghibli Park is open. I have to admit, Richard and I had a little giggle when we watched someone on YouTube walk through parts of it on opening day. We were like old-fashioned back streets, wells, retro trains with cloth seats. Wait, this is just Inaka, or countryside. Or a lot like where we live. And we can see that for free. But I kid. They're opening the park in phases, it looks like. And there will be lots of nature to inhale, loads of Ghibli characters to look at, and gift shops. But boy, do I wish they had a functioning Neko bus to drive around the park and carry people. Or a giant Howl's moving castle. Now that would be cool. Anyway, today I'm going to tell you about something different you can do while visiting Japan. It's much older and also super neat that will, if you play your cards right, get you in good with the gods. So stay put, and I'll be right back. Would you like to explore the stranger, more obscure corners of Japanese culture? Dig a little deeper into superstitions, curious customs, and all those mysterious creatures that inhabit the land? If so, then this is the podcast for you. Uncanny Japan is where I, author Teresa Matsura, share all the fascinating tidbits I unearth while doing research for my writing. From the bizarre to the ghastly, and everything in between. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, how are you? Yeah, me too. But here's something nice. Today's background ambience is brought to you by my visit to Hokoji, a Zen temple in the mountains of Hamamatsu. So let's pretend that we're all there right now, hanging out with the trees and the birds. The binaural soundscape-only version, not me yappering on, will be up for patrons soon for your studying, relaxing, or sleeping pleasure. I'll also post a bunch of photos and neat things I learned while I was there, too. If you'd like to become a patron and help support the show, my writing, and get the extra content, you can do that for like $5 a month. Or there's an 8% discount if you pledge for a year. And I think Patreon is accepting more and more different currencies, too. So that might help. Oh, and remember the little audio story I told you about last time? Kuwazu Nyobo, the wife who didn't eat. Yeah, at the moment I'm recording this, it's still not up. Submitted, being distributed, and waiting. So any day now, perhaps. Okay, today. Thinking about those of you who are planning to visit Japan for the first time or returning after quite a while. I want to tell you about something I love to do in case you don't know about it already. It's called Goshuin. Go is honorific. Shu is the character for red, but more specifically, vermilion. And in means mark or stamp or seal. A very short explanation is a Goshuin is a stamp or seal that visitors can collect when they visit Shinto shrines or Buddhist temples. They're beautiful calligraphy and vermilion stamps that show that you visited and prayed at that particular shrine or temple. I'll get into more detail on that in just a moment, but I'm going to go all mom for a second. I want to preface this with, I know all of you are sincere and respectful and beautiful, honest human creatures. Really good people. So I'm not telling you this specifically. But if you know anyone who wants to collect Goshuin, or is, and they're doing it in kind of an uncool way, you could always gently enlighten them. Yes, that pun was unintentional, but I'm going to keep it. Collecting Goshuin is not anything like a stamp rally, where you have a map or a piece of paper and you go around collecting stamps from different places or stations, just trying to get them all. Stamp rallies being a fun activity that you do with friends or alone. but it is in no way a spiritual undertaking. Goshuin, on the other hand, are. You collect them from temples or shrines, and there is a certain amount of respect and manners involved with the whole procedure. I'll get into that in a minute, too. The rules or manners will make more sense after I tell you more about what they are and how to collect them. So you already know that they are some kind of stamp or seal that you can get from temples and shrines across Japan. Not all, though. There are many smaller, unmanned places that don't offer them. Or you may have to call ahead and have someone meet you there at a certain time. For example, the wolf shrine/temple I went to was like that. I went and I was expecting someone to be there, but there was no one at all, even at the small souvenir area. I learned later that if I had called, someone would have gone up the mountain and met me, and I could have gotten a Goshuin. That said, it's safe to say if you're going to a medium or larger temple or shrine, you'll definitely find the Goshuin window. I'll put the kanji up in the show notes, but it's usually where you find the omamori and ofuda, good luck amulets, sold, off to the side of the main temple or shrine. A bit of trivia for you. In Shinto, the priest who performs this is called a shinshoku, and in Buddhism, they're called jushoku. Okay, so first what you need to do is get yourself a Goshuin-cho, or Goshuin booklet. These are usually sold where you get the actual stamp, so that makes it easy. Or you can find them in larger bookstores or stationery shops, and that's if you want to shop around, because you get to choose from all kinds of covers. Plain ones, fancy ones, cloth ones, wooden ones, Hello Kitty ones, and I just bought a Hyakki Yagyo, Night Parade of 100 Demons one. Like I said, there's all sorts. Bigger temples will also have their name on one, which makes them kind of special too. They cost anything from 1,000 yen to more, depending on how extravagant you want to go. And it's important to note that you can't use just any notebook. You must invest in one of these neat little books, because they're special in another way. When you open it, you'll find the pages are actually one long piece of paper folded, accordion-like. If you've ever seen Buddhist religious texts or sutras, they're often in this fashion. It's very old and it came from China. So first things first. It is proper to pray first at the temple or shrine before getting your book stamped. The stamp isn't just a sign that you've visited, but also a kind of bond between you and the god or gods or deities enshrined there. It's between you and them. No one is going to horn in on your prayers, but it's the polite thing to do. So go toss in a coin, go-in or 100 yen, into the saisen bako, that slotted wooden box in front of the temple, and te o owasete. Place your hands together and quietly pray. If you're at a Shinto shrine, it goes, money, jangle the bell rope, bow twice, clap twice, pray, then bow once. After you finish this, and it's called omairi, then head over to the Goshuin area. A stamp will cost usually 300 yen, but sometimes they're more, depending. Fancier stamps cost more, or certain times of year or events. This part always makes me awkward, asking how much it is, because a lot of places you pay after they've finished. But some, though, you'll get a plastic number thingy and you pay first. You can come back later after you've walked around, or wait to be called. I always just smile and bow a lot, and that's my recipe for staying out of trouble, too. Anyway, open your Goshuin-cho, the booklet, to the page you want to be stamped. Turn it to face the monk so that they don't have to turn it around before they write, and hand it to them with both hands. You can say yoroshiku onegai shimasu here, too, if you'd like. You can stay and watch if they get to it right away. I quite love watching them do the calligraphy, but sometimes they have a whole stack of books, or the monk who is the best at calligraphy isn't there at the moment, so you'll have to wait. You can wander around a bit if you'd like. Whatever I do is awkward, so I don't know what kind of advice to give you here. When they're done writing it, either you'll be right there watching or be called to come back after a stroll through some side paths. Whatever the case, pay if you haven't paid, take it with both hands and thank them and bow. There, you got your first Goshuin. There really is something I think magical about Goshuin. The pressing the wooden carved seals into the sticky vermilion ink and then into your book. The brush dipped into freshly ground black ink, the characters written in that particular monk's style, then switching to a smaller brush for different parts of the page. Smaller stamps, too. Such attention to detail and care. Oh, and something else I always think about, and anyone who has ever studied or practiced Japanese calligraphy knows, is they really can't mess up. Even more so in your Goshuin-cho, because it's absolutely impossible to tear out a page and start over. So that moment that they're writing and stamping, they are so fully concentrated, one mind and all that. I mean, how many times have I written the date wrong in my journal? Or went to make a grocery list and spelled something wrong just because I was thinking about the next thing on the list? None of that here. They really are well done. I think I've told this story before, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to tell it again. My in-laws decided to take us once to Kamakura, ages ago, before Julian was even born. That's the first time my mother-in-law taught me about the whole Goshuin tradition, too. Well, since we'd go to get ours done at the same time, we'd often get two different monks writing them, and we liked to compare the calligraphy afterward, because I was studying it at the time, and, well, it's just so beautiful. We got to this one temple, and there were several monks sitting and waiting, and I nudged her and I motioned to the knockdown, drag-out, gorgeous monk. Hey, I was 23 at the time. Anyway, she eye rolls and yeah. So I immediately march up to his window while she went to the one beside him. Her monk wasn't so hot, but, that's okay. Mostly we were in competition to see who could get the most distinctive and gorgeous writing. When we were done, we scooted off under some trees to compare, and hers was so much more stunning than mine. Mine was okay, but that's when she told me about not all beautiful faces have pure hearts. I thought it was funny. So did she. So when you're finished, you'll note that the monk will never blow on the ink to dry it. Instead, they'll grab a little piece of newsprint, cut to size, or some kind of paper, and slip it between the pages so it doesn't dirty the blank page or seal across from it. It's very thoughtful. If you're lucky, they'll stick in a piece of paper or postcard with some information about that particular temple or shrine or deity. Because sometimes, or a lot of times, it's difficult to read the calligraphy, and while you remember it at the time, like me, after a year or so, you'll probably forget. So it's nice to have one of those. But for the love of God, or gods, you do not write in your Goshuin-cho. That's a big no-no. It's only for the stamps, nothing else. This has always vexed me because I love studying kanji and the temples and the shrines. Up until now, I've been good. But I think I might just keep a separate nice notebook with all the information, plus any pamphlets from the temple or shrine that I might pick up, and keep it near the Goshuin-cho. By the way, when you look at it later, what did the priest or monk actually write on your page? Well, let me give you an idea. On the right upper hand part is the kanji hohai, which means worship. That will be the same in both temples and shrines. That's always there. Also, you'll see the date of your visit for sure. That will be down on either side, left or right. Then in the middle, in bigger characters, you'll find the name of the temple or shrine, or sometimes the enshrined deity, with the name off to the side. And there might be some other stuff too. But that's mainly what you'll find. As for stamps, the big middle red stamp will be the name of that particular temple or shrine. And often there will be other vermilion ink-dipped smaller stamps in any or all of the corners. It could be Japanese or Sanskrit characters, an imperial chrysanthemum if it's just such a shrine, maybe an image of the deity, or something else equally fancy. Then you have the outliers, or places that have limited edition stamps or seasonal or special holiday ones. Basically, every temple and shrine has its own style, and those too I'll talk about in just a second. A couple things to keep in mind. One is that it's not rare that you get to choose what style of Goshuin you want. They'll have 2 or more examples to show you. They might be for different temples in the complex or different deities enshrined there. Again, something seasonal or event-related. Whatever it is, you get to choose which one you like, or more than one if you want to pay for them. And sometimes they'll either have a special Goshuin that is a slip of paper already stamped and calligraphied and separate that you can buy and glue into your book. This, it seems, is for special things or smaller temples where they don't keep a monk on duty all day waiting for visitors. Funny story. I just went to a temple a couple cities away last week. I've been there a bunch of times before, but I never got Goshuin. I was reading reviews, and someone in Japanese wrote that the monk at the very top, the main temple, was a real jerk. It was pretty harsh, but I saw that the temple replied with an apology, and they said they talked to him. I thought that was funny, a monk being a jerk. I guess it happens. Anyway, I go there, spend most of the day walking around and doing my thing, until I make it to the top of the mountain or hill. There sits the main temple, really old and awesome. But I see the little side place where the monk is sitting, and it says Goshuin. So I saunter over, take out my Goshuin-cho, drop my change on the ground, embarrass myself, the usual. I smile, I bow. I ask if he does Goshuin, like it's not obvious, it's written right there above his head and all around. He didn't roll his eyes, to his credit, but I bet he considered it. He says yes, which one would I like? And holy cow, they had like all of the 7 lucky gods. Fudomyo, a couple Jizo, others. I panicked and said Fudomyo because he's my go-to these days. So the monk prepares everything as I'm still browsing the examples. That's when I see a limited edition, colorful Cosmos Flowers Goshuin, and I hurry back over. Now he hasn't started writing or inking anything yet. It's still a blank page. I go, "Hi, yeah, I see you have this limited edition Cosmos flower." And I swear, he looks me straight in the eye, reaches over, grabs a big stamp, inks it, all while maintaining eye contact with me, and he presses it into my book, and then he says, "Sorry, already stamped it." Okay, so I smile and I bow, my go-to. Very quickly about where Goshuin originated. It looks like the most believed theory is that the practice started or became popular during the 700s, the Nara period, when pilgrims traveled around Japan and visited famous temples and shrines. They might pray, recite a sutra, or present a sacred item. In return, they'd get a Goshuin. It showed that they visited a certain temple or shrine and all that entails. Now for some Goshuin-cho etiquette. My mother-in-law taught me that you must have a Goshuin-cho bukuro as well. Not absolutely necessary, but it's nice to have a nice drawstring bag to keep your book in. I also keep any pamphlet I might pick up along the way in there, not in the Goshuin-cho, but alongside it, so I can go back and remember where I went. I haven't heard of this before, but I see they also sell binders to keep the books closed, and attached to them is a small coin purse to store the coins you need to pay for the stamps. If I could tell you how many times I've dropped coins, pulled out receipts from the supermarket or a shopping list from my wallet, that it's not a good look. A coin purse attached to the book is a brilliant idea. Okay, I also found a monk who gave a list of Goshuin manners that I'll share before I go. And he was giving these to Japanese people, so of course it'll work for us too. The first one I mentioned briefly. Don't go immediately to the Goshuin window and get your seal. First, you must visit the temple and shrine and sampai. Sampai is translated as worship or pray. Whatever you do is totally between you and the gods, or God, or Buddha, or other deities. But visiting the main temple or shrine and putting your hands together and saying a little prayer or go-aisatsu, greeting, should be first on your agenda. Then you can go and get your Goshuin. The whole purpose of Goshuin, he said, is proof that you visited the temple or shrine and you made a little connection with the god or gods. So not doing that is a big no-no. Number 2 is to pay attention to the time. Depending on the temple or shrine, the times you can get one will vary. It's probably important to note that monks wake up very early and they go to bed early too. The last temple I visited a few days ago was quite big, but they closed at 3 p.m. Usually it's a safe bet, he said, to think from 9 to 4. But most good-sized temples have websites, so it's easy to check. And remember, from 12 to 1 the monks eat, so don't go then. They'd have to grab somebody and make them do it for you. Number 3, use different books for temples and shrines. This is kind of debated. Some mix them. My first Goshuin show, I did have both temples and shrines in there, as did my mother-in-law, by the way, but no one said anything. And probably most places won't. But this monk who talked about the manners did say it's not unheard of for a temple or shrine to see that you're putting both in one book and refuse to give you one. So why not get 2 books? Number 4, you're not to give these as gifts to friends. They're not souvenirs. The whole idea being it's a little symbol of a personal connection between you and some kami-sama or bodhisattva or jizo or Buddha and the place you visited. So think of it as a holy thing between you and them. Also, it's lucky. I read that you can think of your Goshuin show as a kind of omamori, or protective good luck talisman. So that's nice. Number 5, again with respect. Don't write in the books, don't put stickers in there, or anything messy. Keep them neat. Also, when you get the Goshuin, while you're there, I already mentioned using both hands to give and receive the book. But also, don't take photos or video of the actual writing of the Goshuin. No eating, no drinking, no talking with your friends. Very quiet, very respectful. Okay, what number am I on? 6? 6. Don't leave the Goshuin show laying around or treat it roughly. The best case scenario is to keep it on your kamidana, god shelf, or butsudan, family altar. But if you don't have one of those, the monk said that keeping it in a nice clean bookshelf is fine. But it's also a fun idea to get a wooden box that fits your Goshuin show and keeping it there, like tarot cards. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, and another thing that I just remembered that I read, and this was a warning to Japanese tourists, not so much foreigners, but it sounds like there's a big Goshuin boom. It's like all the rage right now. And people visit temples and shrines with their friends. And one person will take all their money and the books and drop them off at the window while the others pray or take Instagram photos. I say that sarcastically, but it's not cool, and that's what the monk said. He said, don't do that. It's you and your visit. So I wanted to share that, something different and meaningful that you might like to do when visiting Japan. I'll put some examples of different Goshuin up on the Uncanny Japan website. So if you'd like, you could check that out. But I'll end today with a little mind-blowing piece of trivia. They actually have Goshuin for castles. If you're a castle buff, you can get a special book just for them, and you can go around and collect those. I did a quick Google search about what they looked like. They're similar, but actually, I don't want to say cooler, but they're more colorful with different clans' crests. There might be a big image of a horse, the castle itself, a dragon. I guess it all depends on which castle you go to, but I am intrigued. I think history buffs would really like those. And I'm guessing you don't have to be so reverent with your book or stamps either. Okay, a great big thanks to all my patrons. I want you to know you are the best, and thank you, thank you. I've been hearing some people's cards are being denied or acting wonky, so I apologize for that. I did contact Patreon, and they said it's a little bug that they're working on. They said they'll get it fixed ASAP. Thank you so much again for listening, and I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. You've reached the end of the show, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate you listening and supporting us. Any subscribing, reviewing, and gushing to your friends, family, even random strangers really does help keep us going. If you have the means and you want to help a little more and get a little more, we are making extra content over on Patreon, all for only $5 a month. Or if you like to read horror, you might be interested in my Bram Stoker-nominated short story collection, The Carp-Faced Boy and Other Tales. 本当にありがとうございます. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you real soon.